probably give a little bit of a different introduction to you than others would, because I had the privilege to study with you and your company and with Richard Bernstein. So you are a world leader in helping us understanding relationships, men, women, how we are different and how to master them. And I'm really passionate about this theme. So I became a love coach in 2010, and really having studied with you over the last year and spending a lot of time listening to you, being, you know, this creator of these amazing books, which carry so much wisdom for all of us to understand and to bring into the world. And now being a coach under your brand and representing Mars Venus globally, I feel some sort of urge and almost passion to know more about the background of certain things so that I can share it with the world better. I know that a few coaches are on the call, also clients of mine who work in the field of coaching and helping people. So I think it will be a very, hopefully, you know, educational and helpful conversation. So what I would like to start with, John, is tell us, you know, I know you have an incredible spiritual background, and how has your spiritual journey actually shaped the creation of Mars Venus, and how came the metaphor of Mars and Venus as two cosmic frequencies? How did this come about? I have never heard how you really created the idea for this.
Well, my spiritual background didn't really tell me about the gender differences so much as actually prepared me. I grew up in a family with 6 boys and 1 girl, and I was the 5th boy. So I think my mother was hoping I'd be a girl. And my mother and I were very, very close, we'll put it that way. And she kind of like protected me from my brothers who were always jealous of me. And later in life, when I was very successful, my brothers were complaining about their lives, and they said, well, you're successful because mom loved you more. And I said, that's ridiculous. I'm not aware of that at all. And we asked her, and she said to them, oh, I've done everything to love all my 7 children. I try to everything to love you equally. I love you all so, so much. It's just Johnny, he makes you love him more. So whatever it might be. And I think I had more of a spiritual sense to me. And the spiritual connection actually is, in me, it comes from my female side. And so I was a happy kid, a sensitive kid, a shy kid, and all of that. And loved women, loved girls. Sex as a teenager was fantastic. I always felt comfortable with them. But then my soul, to find balance, I became a monk. As a monk, it was like I'd gone so far to my female side, but I was truly loved by the female. You know, there's a place where males get close to their mothers, but their mothers aren't happy. And so then they end up trying to make mother happy, and they never can. And so they end up having a lot of psychological problems. My gift was that I could be close to my mother, and she just adored me and loved me, but she was a happy woman. There was never any neediness there, no clinginess or no demand for me to be a certain way. So I got a really good kind of love from my mother. And then I had a really great role model in the Maharishi of Transcendental Meditation, of a man who was, at least when I was with him, he was a beautiful balance of masculine and feminine energy. And by feminine energy, I mean, he was happy, he was loving, he was generous, he was playful. He was creative. These are all of our feminine qualities. And then the masculine side is, you know, he'd been a monk himself. He was very disciplined, hardworking, selfless, wanting to help the world. And so being in that midst of him being sort of the playful one, but not indulging so much time with me, because I would spend, 15 hours a day meditating. I would take silence. I would eat a bowl of food a day. I was pure celibate. To be pure celibate is to be extremely masculine. You see, if it's by choice, okay. A lot of guys don't have relationships, but they're masturbating to porn. That's the worst, weakening the soul. But truly, I never masturbated in my 20s. It was always taking that energy through spiritual practice and discipline. But what that did, he inspired me as a role model to go to my male side and learn. And I didn't have the language at that time of male and female, But after 9 years of that, my brother was bipolar, and meditation didn't solve it for him. So I kind of hit a place where I was no longer feeling the need for a spiritual teacher. But at the same time, my brother needed me. So I stopped being a monk. I went out to California to study psychology to help my brother, thinking psychology might help. And in that process, started having sex. It was like the greatest thing in the world. I felt like Don Juan. I went around studying women, what made women happy in sex. I would tell them the truth. I'm just making up for lost time here. and so I completely went from my male side back to my female side. Because see, when men are wanting sex, they're depending on a woman to be happier. That whenever you're depending on anything to be happier, you're on your female side. So now I was like reawakening this sexual identity, and wanted to learn about sex, because it was a dilemma inside of me, because when I would ejaculate, all of my spiritual experience evaporated. I still knew my oneness with the universe, my oneness with God. I had my experiences with me, but sex depleted me of the ejaculation, depleted me of the juice that allowed me to stay in these meditative trances and these really Yogananda-like experiences of traveling the universe and bliss for hours. And, people say, how can you meditate for 15 hours? I could say, if you could imagine having sex for 15 hours, basically the same thing.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So that's sort of the foundation. So here I am, this rather enlightened type guy, and I'm now coming into the female world, but not understanding women at all. And so the first thing I wanted to learn about women was what made them happy in sex. And I didn't know any of this stuff. Back in those days, we didn't have sex education. There weren't a lot of books on sex and whatever. So I was traveling around interviewing women on what made them happy in sex and providing that for them and learning. And I thought this was such helpful information, and most men didn't have it. So those were my first workshops I taught, which was on, how to have spiritual sex, how to have enlightened sex, which is, at that time I was teaching for men how to have orgasms without ejaculating. If you haven't ejaculated for 9 years, it's pretty easy to have orgasms without ejaculating. But, if a guy's masturbating all the time, he's in a habit of releasing the energy. And so I taught those for a while. It was a bit too advanced for people at that time. But I realized that sex was really nothing, and it wouldn't last if you didn't also have love. And so I slowly shifted within a year from just focusing on sex to love. And what breaks down love is communication. You need better communication. And then I was married to Bonnie, and the gift that meditation gave me, which is the saving grace of our relationship, was that when, couples get upset with each other, anytime I was upset, I had the good sense. I had a place I could go to feel good that had nothing, that would not bring my energy down, but would bring it up. I could go meditate. And in meditation, it's really what the Buddha taught, which was you forget all your problems. If you can forget your problems, there's no blame, there's no negativity. See, all negative emotions, hurt and all that, it's all blame. And you're focusing on a problem and depending on that to change in order to feel better. But I can go to meditation and forget all my problems and be very happy. It's literally like what meditation did for me. It's like the sun just came out where I am right now. And the sun is always shining, but there's clouds in front of it. And meditation helped me to remove the clouds so the sun shines again. And then what I would do is when the sun would shine again, I would reflect on what happened that upset me, bothered me, closed my heart. And I would focus on how did I contribute to that. I'd also look at what was her mistakes, how she could have done it better, and how I could do it better, so it doesn't happen again, more understanding of the situation. But I committed myself to never telling her what she did that was wrong, because that would come across as criticism and hard for her to hear. I just focused on how I could change myself. And if everybody could do that, they would have a much better life. If we just primarily focus, mind your own business. Is look at, and it's not that you can't make your relationship better, but your first step is to make yourself better. And then from a better place, an open-hearted place, in a non-demanding way, ask for what you want. Okay. In a non-demanding way, ask for what you want in a not pushy way. So ultimately, my wife had the good fortune of being married to a man who never complained about her and always adored her and loved her until he didn't. And then he would stop talking. He would go meditate. And she called it, you do some magic. I don't know what you do, but you always come back out with more love. That's what's so important. You see, men, if they're in touch with their masculinity, they'll have a tendency to get really close and pull away, get really close and pull away. And at that time, when he pulls away, that's not giving a woman what she needs at that time. She likes connection. Connection produces the female hormones. Men need disconnection to produce the male hormones. Now, the dance of life, well, we want to, I'm 70 years old, so I can do this. Rarely do I need cave time. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I just finished meditating 4 hours today. So that's also cave time. But the need to pull away from my partner is much less because I'm able to sustain my testosterone levels while I'm very intimate with her. Intimacy is estrogen, and being selfless is testosterone. So having both those at the same time, but that takes a lot of maturity. So in the meantime, men will get close, their estrogen will go up and they'll feel really good, be really loving, nice towards you, and you'll feel really connected. But then they need to pull away. So ironically, if you have a really good relationship, a man's going to have time where he just pulls away and needs to ignore you. And that used to be normal because men would go to work, okay, and then they ignore their partner. And now we're working at home or we're both working. It's women need to experience that connection. And what men have to learn are, well, first of all, she needs to understand that men pull away, but they come back. Each time they come back, if you don't go after them, they come back. And what men have to do when they pull away is learn how, when they pull away, to feel good and then reflect on how they can be a better person. So he doesn't know how to be a better person if nobody doesn't teach him. It's like this is where Mars-Venus behavior comes in, which is men learning what their mistakes are. As simple as a wife's upset and you tell her you shouldn't be upset. Yeah. You just made a gold mistake. Just as simple as that. Why are you upset? You shouldn't be upset. Or she complains at you. You complain too much. You feel annoyed with her. Oh, stop talking, big mistake. Now she's going to talk more or never talk to you again. We make without understanding women, very foolish mistakes in a relationship. Likewise, women make just as many foolish mistakes. A guy is pulling away, he's quiet. She says, well, what are you feeling? Never ask a man what he's feeling when he becomes quiet. But you feel insecure. You're afraid. Does he love me? Does he not love me? Did I say something wrong? What's the matter? So what you can do, you want that connection, is to get connection with a man anytime he pulls away. You say, right in the middle of a conversation, men will sort of withdraw. And women will go, what's going on? What are you feeling? What's going on? Instead, you just say, you're thinking about what I just said, right? But yeah, done. Create a space where he's successful and he'll say yes. And as soon as whenever you say yes, there's a connection. Mm. So connection is so important to women and more important today than ever before. Because women are more independent, and independent is detachment. I got to do it myself. I'm not depending on anybody else. I'm doing it myself. That's independence. And that's a great thing, women on their male side. So their need for connection is even greater than it's ever been. That's why there were, back when I wrote Men Are From Mars, at least, there were all these books on communication, and women were saying men don't listen. And, one of the ideas of Men Are From Mars was, men, just stop talking. That's what it means. When women say, listen, stop talking, ask questions, help me understand that better, tell me more, what else, and try to walk in her shoes, so to speak. Just that's what's going to solve the problem. Because the problem today, you can boil it all down, and it is simplistic, and this life is more complicated, but you have to have a simple approach if you're going to do anything about it. Women need men today to help women come back to their female side. Yes. Men require women to teach us how to do that in a way that doesn't sound like we're stupid or it doesn't sound like you're controlling us.
Yeah. So, I would like to move now a little bit to the actual theme of our call and
let me just quickly answer your question.
Yeah, okay.
So here I am. I'm teaching that whole idea that men and women are different. It was so politically incorrect. And many people were loving it, but even back then there was a little bit of this ridiculous cancel culture. People would come in signs and disrupt my talks. It would just be unhappy women and sometimes unhappy men coming and blaming me for their problems. So these people would be disruptive. And I thought, how can I make this really playful and light? How can I need to, there's something missing here. There's something missing, because I was just talking about men and women being different. And I happened to be taking a course in astrology at the time, where we were in astrology, you have to learn the properties of the different planets. And my wife, Bonnie, she was Venus and I was Mars. It just felt right. And, you know, Mars is the masculine planet and Venus is the feminine planet. So we were doing that and it didn't strike me at that point. But then the next day I was giving a talk and I just seen that movie E.T. Everybody remembers back in 1984, 83, the movie E.T. So I wanted to make a point to the women in the audience. I said, now women, just imagine your husband's ET. Now my point was that in ET, you get this little person from another planet. He likes chocolate. And she's telling her kids, you know, don't give him chocolate. That's not good. But for him on his planet, that's what's good. And so you have to understand what might be good for you is not necessarily good for him. It's a complicated idea. But I started out by just saying, so women, just imagine your husband's ET. And then they all started laughing completely. It was like, and then some woman in the audience, it sounded like she was drunk. She said, well, where's my husband from? And I said, Mars, of course. And everybody laughed and laughed and laughed. And I got chills on the hair stood up on my arm. And I said, thank you, God. You know, this is it. You know, men are from Mars. That's the way I can start teaching this idea. So it was a way to lighten the subject. But the subject of gender differences was, you know, a couple of years I've been teaching it. And it was very, very helpful as a therapist to explain to women how they misunderstand him and explain to men how you're misunderstanding what your wife is really saying here. And as a translator from two different planets, I could help couples so quickly and so helpful. And it was so helpful to them. It doesn't solve all problems, but it does improve the communication so that you can together solve your own unique problems.
Oh, thank you, John. And sorry I interrupted you. I just felt
No.
you know,
I give everybody a
you're
background.
such an amazing storyteller. This is actually why I called this this meeting, you know, success stories, because you tell so beautiful stories all the time we're meeting you. And thank you for that very personal story, because I hadn't heard it from that angle. And that's really beautiful about the astrology and about, you know, how it energetically came about.
You know, as there's a lot of coaches listening and so forth, and people do not remember ideas. They remember stories, and the story lets them come to the idea on their own, so to speak. So I just see the power of stories, and people acknowledge me. It was so helpful, because I think back to how many seminars have I taken, and it's kind of like even hard to remember, what did they say? What did they say? But when somebody tells a story that you can relate to in some way, you can generally remember stories. And people have told me this from 30 years ago. They said, I took your seminar 30 years ago. I still remember when you said this and this, because there was some example. And you know, for me, I have so much information. I sometimes want to blitz with information. And I have to remember, just tell a story, John, that where you learned that point, where you learned that.
And that helps so much to really understand, and also to accept our own stories. I remember a previous conversation with you, you know, when we were together, you and me, in a call, and you said, you know, there's the time to tell stories and at a time not to tell stories, because sometimes it really hurts, you know, and we're probably wanting to come to this arena of hurt and heartbreak, and when things don't really work out the way we anticipated them. And this little book with a lot of, you know, wisdom in it, and particular emotional wisdom you have, or emotional intelligence you have channeled into it. How came this book about? And I think it's highly, you know, not seen in the mix of your other books. I think it's one that could be, you know, used much more by people who go through changes. So you want to talk a little bit about Mars and Venus starting over?
Yeah. This is well, you know, what people don't know is I was married to Bonnie for 34 years. Bonnie passed on 3 years ago. But I wrote Starting Over before that happened, because prior to being married to Bonnie, I was married to Barbara. And prior to being married to Barbara, I wanted to marry Bonnie. So Bonnie said I wasn't ready, and she was right. I had to have my practice marriage to make all these mistakes. And this is where the emergence of the beginning point of Men Are From Mars came, by reviewing my first marriage and realized we were in role reversal. She was always wanting to know what I felt, and not willing to share what she felt. She always wanted to fix me. She was kind of like the man, always wanted to know what I felt and then tell me I shouldn't feel that way. And being a man, there was a dynamic where I would go to my cave, and she could not deal with that, and she always made me feel so guilty. And you can't go to your cave, because it'd be a funny story is in our relationship, it'd be like, I'm this really generous, open guy, right? And I'm very agreeable and friendly. And I told her, I'm a great guy, but one thing is I don't talk after 12 o'clock. I thought 12 o'clock, I need to go to sleep. I get up early. I'm tired. I don't want to talk about the relationship or anything after 12 o'clock. Well, having said that, at 12 o'clock, she's ready to talk. She wanted, and we got to talk about this. And what do you feel about that? And why did you do that? And what's going on with you? I don't know how she could come up with so many questions, but she needed to talk. And I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to talk. And she keep at me. So finally I said, okay, I'm going in the other room. I'm going to go in the other room to sleep if you don't stop asking me all these questions. And then she'd keep going. So then I remember this time I'd go to the other room, and then she would come and she'd be so upset, and she'd put her fingers under the door. You got to come back. It literally pushed her buttons of abandonment when I did that. Right. And she had issues about that. And so, and from my side, and for example, I would never say to my wife now, I would never say at 12 o'clock, I will not talk to you. Okay. Mm-hmm. I would never set that boundary. I say, look, if you ever really need me, I'm always there for you. You can't, because the boundary was like a test for her on some emotional level. And then when I pulled away, but here was an awakening, kind of a real awakening of something I didn't realize. After I was in the room and she was crying and she was at the door and I had it locked, and please come back, I won't ask you, all that. I said, no, I'm going to sleep. And then she left, and she went to the other room. And it just took about 5 or 10 minutes. And then suddenly I started missing her. Okay, I had to get away from her. Then she stopped pushing on me. Then suddenly I could go, yeah, I'd like to go in there. I could talk to her if she needs to. I just needed my space. I needed to pull away. And that was sort of the beginnings of one of the big ideas of Men Are From Mars, is when a man pulls away, if you go after him, he'll continue pulling away, going further in the cave. Just create a space for him to come out. Now, ironically, when I found out later, is it was that same night where she actually stopped pursuing me, went back to sleep. I went and got back into bed. She had made a decision at that moment, which is, he really just doesn't love me. So then she began another relationship. Sure. But that was the moment. And again, what a tragedy, in that a man taking his cave time, she would take so personally that she couldn't depend on me. She couldn't trust me. Because deep down inside, that is the bottom line of what allows a woman to feel safe. And I remember this moment in my marriage. It was actually 23 years into the marriage. And I was asking Bonnie, how do you rate me as a husband? And we were doing so well. It became so harmonious, our relationship, and the sex got better, everything. And she said, well, as a father to our children, I can't imagine a better man, a better father. You are A+++. As a husband, you're not perfect. And I could hear that, because that's what makes it easy to hear. I'm not so defensive. I don't have to be perfect about everything. And so she says, as a husband, you're not perfect, but you've given me one of the greatest gifts any woman could want. And I said, well, what's that? She says, John Gray, I know you. 23 years. I can say things and do things that really push your buttons and upset you. And whenever you get upset, you stop talking, you go to your cave, you do some magic, and you come back out with more love. And so I know there's nothing I could say or do to push you out of my life. And that's the greatest gift anybody could ever want.
Very beautiful. Thank you.
So beautiful. And her support of that was so touching for me. because I have to say, probably 85% of guys out there, I don't know if it's all of them, they feel guilty pulling away. And so they never get that time to come back to themselves, almost like pulling back a bow and then shooting it forward. We need that time to come back to our masculine energy, which is autonomous, self-reliant, it's self-dependent, it's spacious, it has no complaints, it's self-fulfilling. Then once you're happy, you can't become happier unless you give of yourself to somebody else. And that's the dynamic of relationship for men, is to be successful in giving. And for women, once they wake up to what's really going to make them happy, it's the success in receiving. She's not selfish. She's not selfish. She doesn't have to be selfless. That's going to the male side. It's learning to be selfish in a loving way, which is to appreciate what you get, to ask for more in small increments, to create a space for someone to not always be perfect, to not be dependent on a man for your happiness, but dependent on him to become happier. What a beautiful concept. And that's when you have a life where you can, when you're with him and he's present, you can cling to that and go, this is like delicious ice cream or the best soup in the world, whatever it is that you enjoy, you cling to it, you're attached to it. And then when he needs to pull away, you've learned to let go and attach to something else. So attachment is all estrogen, and women need 10 times, 20 times more estrogen than men. And estrogen happens when you feel I can depend on this to make me happy. That's why during COVID, saving grace for some women was shopping, online shopping. Look what I could have. Look what I could get. Look what I could give. If women could just, one of the things, a little self-analysis here of looking at how you look at the world. When you say the word, I have to do this, I have to do that. And there's things we have to do. But if your mind is mostly filled with I have to, each time it's producing a stress response in you. It's increasing testosterone levels and lowering estrogen. For a man, I have to is what gets me up every day. Okay. I have to make a difference in the world. You know, I have all the money I could ever use and need in my life. So I don't have to work. I don't have to do anything to earn money, which is the biggest have to for men. You know, you have to work in order to make money, have a family, whatever. But when you get beyond that, you'll see what happens to so many successful men. They get fat, they lose their libido, they become addicted, they get divorced, you know, they all these things because they don't have to do anything. I have to do something is a testosterone producer. Do women need testosterone? Not so much. What they need is more estrogen. And too much testosterone pushes down their estrogen. So what are the words in your mind? Even it's words like I get to, I enjoy, I like to, I want to, I love to. Anything I love to do, I get to do, I enjoy doing, it's fun to do. That's the world, that's a part of your life where you're depending on something outside yourself that brings you fulfillment. He is also one of those sources, but should never be the only one. Ideally, he's dessert. I don't mind being dessert. That's a good thing. So it just frees a man from feeling burdened by being responsible for your happiness. It's just, he should be responsible for his own happiness, and then he can make you happier. But when you look to a man for everything, you put an undue burden on him and on yourself. It keeps you from being a rich, full person where you have many sources of love and support in your life, and you're not just sort of investing in one source, you have many.
Thank you, John. So many people have access to this knowledge, and you share so much other coaches and authors share. And why is the rate of relationships breaking still so high? And why are we not prepared for the real pain that comes up when we really have to face the reality that something is about to change? So can you talk about the pain? Yes. Can you talk about healing the heart and what we can do to help others in that process?
Okay, so I want all of the healers to know that the pain that you've healed in your heart can heal others. If you haven't felt it, you can guide them, but you can't heal them. I remember I was so devastated when my first wife, Barbara, fell in love with another man. And therefore, I couldn't teach my seminar on making love work because I was going through a divorce. The woman I gave my heart to was in love with another man. I was brokenhearted on my male and female side. I had no career, and I had no feeling being loved by someone. I was so devastated. The pain was unbearable. I couldn't sleep. I remember I have a feeling letter technique that brings relief and eventual healing, which I think everybody needs to learn. And you held up that nice book that I have called Mars and Venus Starting Over. It's just, even if you wanted the divorce, you still are devastated. Why? Because it's the death of a dream. And when we fall in love, it's a dream that you're going to share your life. You're going to grow in love. And it's what we're here for. We are all here for, deep inside the seed that made human beings. We are from heaven. And that seed says we're here to grow in love. And when that dream, we think we found that way, we're going to grow in love through this intimate relationship. That's a dream. And when that dream breaks up, even if you're the one who says, I'm leaving this, it's over, whatever, you're heartbroken because your dream is not fulfilled. Now, understanding the mechanism, and I'll talk about some of those practical techniques. The best book I've written on the actual structured practical techniques is what you held up, Mars and Venus Starting Over. It should be called Emotional Intelligence, 1.5 or something, or 2.0, 3.0. It's such an advanced system, but because it's not just sharing your feelings, okay, but it's a whole bunch of techniques I'll get to today. We can talk a bit about that. But this breaking your heart, understand what's going on. Okay, hurt. Okay, you said the word pain and you said the word hurt. Well, let me make a distinction there. Hurt is suffering. Pain is part of life, and you release it as soon as you actually feel the pain. And feeling hurt leads you to that pain. And people who don't feel the hurt will suffer. Okay, so that the Buddha talked about suffering, but when you get to your emotional pain, you're now able to let it go. You can't let go of suffering. You can just find the pain which is causing the suffering, and then feeling the emotion, you're able to let it go by bringing your light to that. We'll get to how that happens. But the concept I'm moving towards here is something Freud explained, which is the phrase need integrate. There's a need integrate. Are you familiar with that term? Have we talked about that before?
Yes, in the training we talked about that, yes.
For others, let me share that. So a need integrate means that we come into this world with needs. Now, to a certain extent, we don't know what we need until we get it. So most people walk through life, they don't even know what they need. But if you did get what you need, then you go, oh, I got this. I really like this. This is good. I need this. If you never got it, you don't even know what your needs are. So, but once you're aware of your need, I need love. And we all, to some extent, I want to be appreciated. I want to be cared for. I want to hug. We know some of our needs. Okay. So once you have this need for companionship and love and acceptance, appreciation, all that, even if you haven't articulated it, you're with somebody and it feels really good. Okay. What's happening there is you have this need. Let's just say I need to feel appreciated, and you appreciate me. Now, what my brain does, if you do that over and over and over, my brain gets to a point where it says, I don't need to be appreciated. I need you to appreciate me. So my brain no longer goes, I just need love. I need to feel trusted. I need to feel accepted. I need to feel belonging. I need to feel safe. These are our primary emotional needs, which weigh much heavier on us today than ever before. Because once you get out of a survival mode, then your emotional needs rise forth. Just like you need food, you need air to breathe, you need your emotional needs fulfilled. And somebody comes along and fulfills that. Suddenly, instead of going, I need to feel appreciated, I need to make a difference, I need to feel I'm not alone, I need you. And the brain literally thinks, in order to be loved, I need you. And you could intellectually tell that person that, well, you're not, you can get that love somewhere else. No, I can't. The part of us which literally becomes wired up to that person, I need you to give me that. It's like when the mother goes away from a child, there'll be all this screaming and distress because the child I don't need milk, I need mother to give me milk. That's the source. So your partner, whether you know it or not, a need integrate occurs. And when that person is no longer present, your brain goes, if I can't have them, I can't have love. If I can't have you, I can't have love. And I need love. And I'll be in pain if I can't have love. And I'll feel hurt. Now, there's 12 primary kinds of pain that I talk about in that book. Actually, that's in the book, How to Get What You Want, which is also really good. But it's also in Mars and Venus Starting Over. So as soon as you have an ending of a relationship, I need that person and they're not there, you will be in just raw pain. Because your brain is really experiencing, I can't get what I need. I can't get what I need. I can't get what I need. So what you have to do is recognize the pain that you feel as an adult will equal to the pain that you never looked at as a child at times when you didn't get what you needed. Okay, that's where it comes from. Because see, the logical mind, the mind in present time basically says, well, if I can't get it from you, I can find somebody else and I'll get it. That's a logical thing to do. But the need integrate happens in the part of our brain, attachment, which is like a child, like an animal, okay, attached. You get those little ducklings that never knew their mothers, and that you feed them food and they think you're their mother and they follow you around,
So which part of the brain is that exactly, John? Can you tell us?
That's the limbic system of the brain. The limbic system of the brain attaches itself. And I'm reminded of something in Bali. I remember when we were in Bali, we saw that they just carry a flag, and the man carries a flag, and I think it's ducks follow them. And then another person's flag, and there'll be like thousands of ducks, and you come in with your flag and they all follow that flag because they associate the flag with you're their mother, you feed them or something, and they make that bond. So much happens in childhood. We can't even imagine it or can conceive of it. A giant elephant, for example, when they're little, you put a chain around their neck and you put it on a log, and the log is just a little log, but they're little elephants, so they can't move. Then later on in life, you still give them a little log and they can't move. They've attached that, they have a meaning associated with that. So we associate attachment as soon as particularly when you have sex with somebody. When you have sex with someone, need integrate occurs. And you're back to your same part of your brain when you were a child, and you have these non-logical, non-rational feelings. I mean, isn't it kind of irrational from one point of view to think, I miss this person who I don't like anymore? Or the same thing is to pine away as I can't get love because my spouse has died. That's happening. It has to happen until you're able to go into that pain and feel it, and at the same time, learn to process it. I'll explain what processing is in a moment, but you have to process it. And then you have to begin giving your brain the experience of getting love outside yourself with somebody else. So this is an old-fashioned saying: when a child falls off the horse, you put them back on right away. It's very, very important that people start to date again after a painful breakup. Now, it doesn't have to be right away. They need to process their feelings, but you want to keep that part of you alive that says, I want to depend on someone to be happy. I don't want to all do it myself. This is what relationship is, particularly for women. I'm depending on someone to make me happier. Mm-hmm. So you have to give yourself experiences, but not serious relationships. I'm not ready for a serious relationship, not ready for sex, but I'm ready to go out with people and experience some kind of interaction. And there's a process through that. I will be writing a book more focused on death, because when Bonnie died, I basically taking notes on how I completely transformed myself. So I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. I'm in a relationship where I have more love than I've ever had in my life. And it's because I learned so much from the grieving process. Every time you feel pain, there's a lesson to be learned and a commitment to be made. And then following through on that commitment brings your life greater light and joy and happiness. But every pain has got a place inside of you where you have limited thinking. And part of it is this childlike thinking. So the big first thing I had to process, which I refer to quite a bit in my book, Mars Venus Starting Over, and of course, helping clients go through this as well, was the devastation I felt when I found out that my wife, Barbara, first wife for 2 years, was already in love with some other guy and wanted to leave me for him. This is like, and I'm teaching a seminar with her called Making Love Work. So it was like, I can't teach that seminar, but what I could begin doing was I created a new seminar. She continued teaching that seminar. That was our divorce agreement, everything I gave to her. because I have this, my masculine side says, I have the source within me. So I'm not dependent on anybody. That's part of me. And then another part of me is I depend on my partner at the time to bring love into my life, joy into my life, bring color into my life. But happiness I can find inside, but happier I find through relationship. So anyway, so I was devastated by that time I developed this technique, not just going and meditating, but I would go and meditate on my emotions, because now I'm having sex with somebody, Barbara would upset me and she'd be upset. And words at a certain point, escalation only makes things worse. First thing we have to teach our clients is escalation never works. And there's never just one person escalating. There's always two people. We have to see how what we do to escalate, take a time out. And a timeout should be a man turns within himself to cool down, to open his heart again. And a woman turns to others, her coach, her friends, God, nature, or her journal. That's turning to yourself in an emotional way and processing what's inside of you and not looking to anything to your partner until you come back to a place of, I am happy and fulfilled within myself, and I can come to you to be happier. So that's there's a free class for everybody at marsvenus.com. It's called
absolutely. Gilan, if you put in the chat the link, please, to the gift that John is offering all the listeners today, that would be awesome. Yes, please, John.
They'll be there. And in there, we give the basic foundation ideas of men are from Mars, women are from Venus. But there's an overlying theme, which is how to get everything you want is 4 steps. One is recognize what you're doing to make it worse. Okay, you can look at your partner fine, but then the only change happens is you realize how you contribute to the problem. So we explain all that, how we unknowingly, so many people unknowingly make it worse. Men try to fix women, women pursue men. There's so many examples. Women complain. Whenever you complain, a guy, you're trying to change him, boom, you're sabotaging the relationship. You're looking to them to change. You're postponing your ability to feel love and happiness until your partner changes. That's the mistake all humans make. We postpone our happiness. Both men and women postpone their confidence until you have great success in the world, rather than feeling confident with what you've done so far. How to feel loving without having to change your partner. So that's the first step, is recognize what are you doing to try to change your partner and stop. But you can't stop unless you have somewhere to go. Somewhere to go is step 2. You go to a place where you give to yourself what you need to achieve hormonal balance. Because see, when you're in hormonal balance, you don't need to change your partner to feel good. You can ask for support to feel better, but you are responsible for your well-being and your love. So you're out of balance, you're looking to them, you're postponing your happiness. You have to go find a place through certain behaviors, and they're different for everybody, but this is why we have this whole massive personal growth industry, which is what you can do at that time to find harmony. And what I've done is dissected down to the biological difference between men and women, because for women, it's a different process than for men. So what do you do to come back to balance? And then once you're in balance, your heart's open again without changing your partner. Then step 3 is now go and give to your partner without expectation of return. You give freely because you're full. When you give, you have to understand what's most important to your partner is not what's most important to you. And what you give is usually the wrong thing. Okay. This is the whole story of men from Mars, women from Venus is that, chocolates may be not good for girls, but they're good for boys. You see, you've got to, on this planet, you need this, on this planet, you need this. And there's this whole knowledge that you teach as a Mars Venus coach on how women unknowingly sabotage relationships by giving men what women want, training men to be lazy, and how men give women what men want, making women feel not good enough. So there's a dynamic of what we have to give freely, but we have to have knowledge, gender intelligence, in order to give the right stuff. We need emotional intelligence so that along with gender intelligence to know as a woman, what direction do I need to find my happiness, which would balance my hormones, estrogen stimulating activities. Men need to know what to do to produce testosterone, and then come back to feeling connected through estrogen. So with the breakup, so here I am and I'm processing my feelings. The foundation of emotional intelligence in my work that I teach is understanding that whenever someone is upset about something, something else is bothering them. Okay. Now, or the emotion you're feeling is a defense reaction to the emotion you're really feeling. So for example, any person who's angry, I mean, any person when they're angry, they're always afraid. But if you were to go to that person and say, I think you're afraid. I'm not afraid at all. I'm just mad. What was done to me is injustice. It's a betrayal. And I'm mad because they did what's wrong. No, you're mad and you are angry, but also behind that anger is you're afraid. Or you had an expectation and you're disappointed and you're sad. See? So, but see, these emotional tones are like the opposite of each other. And if you're feeling afraid, often there's a part of you that feels, fear of something bad's going to happen to me. Well, why would something bad happen to me? Is because part of me is inadequate or feeling unworthy. And that brings up feelings of guilt and sorrow. So there's always layers to our emotions. So, for a primer for people, and I have to say, beyond Mars and Venus starting over is rather sophisticated and in depth. I always start people with my simple little book, my first book I wrote when my heart was broken with Barbara, which is What You Feel You Can Heal. That was my main skill I had, was to recognize that to be the person we want to be, we have to recognize how we have all these masks that we wear, which I think is very metaphorical because right now everybody's been wearing a mask
Yes.
for years. And we're finally able to take off the mask, okay? Take off the mask.
Yes,
what's also
absolutely.
coming out is we didn't need the mask anyway. Now, we now have the big studies where in Florida, they had very little masks, and in California, all lockdowns and masks, and everybody is like jogging with masks on. I mean, just to the insane degree. So you got one extreme here, and then you can look and you can see that Florida has the same percentage of people who died from COVID as California.
Yes.
So in retrospect, we can see it didn't make a difference. Lockdowns don't make a difference in retrospect, comparing it where there weren't lockdowns.
Yeah.
And now there's another thing I just want to do. There we are. Nice chart.
No, I just, lovely chat, and I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to really add that because it's a lovely tool to use. And I know you have it in Beyond Mars Venus. Is it, in which book is it? Oh, in this book. Okay,
it's in this book. This is the very sophisticated. This is one of our themes in Mars Venus coaching, which is we help people identify what their goals are. And then when they don't follow through on their goals, then now you're aware of what's keeping you from following through. And it's one of the 12 blocks. And we talk about the different blocks. And today we're mainly talking about the block of hurt. Okay. And if you look at the emotion of hurt, a hurt is an emotion. And really what you're feeling at that time is the more mind part of it. Is if you look on the chart, you're feeling excluded. You're feeling left out. Okay. It's like, and ironically, what we want people to understand is when you feel hurt, you're basically pushing away. You're pushing someone away when really what you're wanting is to feel their love. You're pushing away the very thing. When you're hurting, you're actually doing it to yourself. It's like, I'm a loving person. Who I am is love. We all are authentically love. And so when I say I can't love you anymore, or because you don't love me, I'm not going to love you, or because you're gone and I can't love you anymore. Okay, there's a block to love. I feel excluded. I feel left out. And so it's feeling excluded is what the hurt is about. And the block is whenever we're feeling excluded, which is now what's going on in our society, is this whole thing of inclusiveness. We want to be more inclusive because people are hurting. But what is the block? The block, if you look at the chart, this is what destroys our lives, is self-pity. Poor me, poor me. The more you feel poor me, the more stuck you will be in poor me. The more you feel hurt with the intention of letting it go. Again, the intention is I'm feeling it to let it go. When you feel an emotion, if it stays stuck, it's because you're only feeling one part of what you're going on inside. If you look in the chart, you're feeling hurt. What you have to do is, okay, I feel hurt, acknowledge it, feel it. Then Go a little deeper into the chart and you see underneath hurt is I'm scared. Anybody who's feeling hurt, really what you're feeling inside deeper is I'm scared. I'm scared I'll never be loved. I'm scared no one will love me. I'm scared. And the fear goes, I won't be loved. Then you ask, why won't you be loved? Because then you go down to a deeper level to the feeling of, I feel unworthy. See, this is what's, you go down this chart, it just sort of helps you look at other pieces within yourself that probably exist, maybe not always, but you have a place to look, because whatever you're looking at, if it's painful, there's more to see. And if you just stay stuck and you don't look deeper, you'll be stuck in that for your life. And self-pity, oh my gosh, what's happening now in America with Black Lives Matter is for 1 year, they showed a white man killing a black man over and over and over and over, living in the past. And so people are so riled up. The violence has increased by 30% in America, just huge amounts of violence with Black people. Why? Because you focused on the past over and over and over. It's just reliving that wound, rather than processing it and going to a deeper level. The truth in America right now, well, it is for Black people, it's never been better. It has never been better. But now they want to take down statues of slave owners. Yeah, that's where the world was then. We're much better now. Let's celebrate. Those guys brought us, they wrote the Declaration of Independence to help us move in this direction. We celebrate the past. You know, when I talk about my childhood, I love my dad. I had a great childhood. And yet Texas in the 60s, when my five brothers misbehaved, it was, okay, my mother said, I'm telling your father. And dad would come home and he'd say, go to your father's room. He'd pull out his belt, you pull down your pants, and he'd whip you. Now, I love my dad. That's just the way we did things in those days. It was a lower level of consciousness. Does that mean I'm always going to walk around, Dad, you whipped me as a child. I can't believe you did that. I'm so woke today. I'm so sensitive. I'm so wounded about that. No, he's doing the best he could do. Life was not perfect. It's better. It's not perfect now. It's better than it's ever been. And everybody's looking at the past. A big George with that center, they've got a big bust of this man who was a meth addict resisting police arrest. And he's a hero because the police killed him. And yeah, that's a bad policeman. You don't advertise that over and over and over into the psyche, but that's what we do in our relationships. Yeah. And I'm just going to say this for fun. And remember, this is for fun, but it's an image that comes up. One of the things I see when I'm in China and visiting various places, there's a part of China where they actually worship the penis. Also in Tibet, they do that as well.
Okay.
And they have a Chinese World's Fair. So that's where I saw this. And you go into that section, you know, like Epcot Center has all of the countries of the world, where China has their own Epcot Center, where they have all the various provinces. And in one of them, you walk in and there's this big giant penis. Okay. They worship masculinity. They think it's great. They think the penis is the greatest thing in the world. And so imagine you take this thing, which is the greatest thing in the world, and you're in a marriage today, and a guy has an affair, and now she hates his penis. And so she erects this big penis in the house and throws things at it every day, throwing stuff at it. How's your relationship ever going to get better?
Absolutely.
It's an outrageous story, but we have to realize that's what we do in our relationships. Is we pray, we just want to bring it up. We want to talk about it. We want to remember it and what victims we are, how we feel sorry for ourselves. Oh, we just bring everything back to, but you did this and you did. We have to learn to let go and celebrate the growth, what we learn. And you can't do that if you feel like a victim. You see, that's why we have to have the men are from Mars, women are from Venus understanding and relationships. What actually goes beyond relationships, the concepts all over the place, which is learning how to respect differences and not bring people down, but bring people up. But in a relationship, when you feel sorry for yourself, what happens is you stay stuck in feeling sorry for yourself, and the world will mirror that. So what you do is that self-pity as the block, you come to feeling excluded, you feel left out. Yes, everybody, every minority feels left out. right now, I will not get the vaccination. I'm a healthy person. I've already had COVID. I have antibodies to it. I don't need a vaccination. I'm not letting anybody tell me how to do it. I may never fly on another airplane again, although I'm buying my own airplane again. So, but anyway, I will not subject myself to this rule, this being controlled by somebody else. And that's just my personality. I originally grew up in Texas. We're rebels. But the reality is, and I'm so excited that there's about half of America that feels exactly like me. See, this is an untested vaccination. If you did it, I wish you the best for it. I don't judge you at all. I know that you have a different source of information. What's very upsetting to me, if I let myself be upset for a few moments, I will let myself feel it and let it go, is that all throughout the year 2020, there were treatments that doctors were using for people who got COVID that worked 85% of the time, so they didn't have to go to the hospital. Because literally going to the hospital was a death sentence. The official narrative in America, it's not that way around the world. They're laughing in America because we have more deaths than anybody. Because literally all of the institutions of America, if you work for like a hospital or whatever, you're not allowed as a doctor in order to treat somebody if they have COVID until their lips turn blue, they're out of air, and they go to the hospital. And then they don't give them the treatments that work anyway. The incubator kills 85% of them. So this is like insanity of wearing the mask. We got to take the mask off and realize it was ridiculous in the first place. We have so many defenses. All your anger is just covering up your feelings of sadness and disappointment. All of your sadness and disappointment is covering up your fears because you're afraid. See, if you weren't afraid, disappointment would be, oh, I didn't get that. Well, I'm confident I'll get it next time. Okay. So you have no fear. Fear fuels everything. You get mad at somebody. Of course, if you felt confident you were going to get what you deserved and what you needed, and that was enough, you'd never be angry about anything. You might be angry for a short period of time, but then you come back to loving yourself, knowing the truth, letting it go. So here I am, most devastating thing at that time in my life. And that's why I have to say at that time in my life, they get worse and worse as I grow older. Losing my wife, Bonnie, who we have a luscious, delicious, making love, beautiful relationship, grandchildren, a life of abundance. And then suddenly the doctor says, you've got cancer. 9 months later, she was a skeleton. It was the most horrendous, traumatic experience. I had, at least for 2 years, full solid PTSD, couldn't sleep at all. But earlier than that, I won't deal with that now, and get to the basics of how I first learned this stuff. I was writing the feeling letter. So the feeling letter is very simply, write what you're upset about. Imagine you're going to say to your partner, take the mask off, say whatever you're going to say, but don't tell them in person. Why not? Because whenever you throw negativity at someone, they're going to throw it back at you. They can't hear that. You can't expect somebody to hear you dumping on them. Be realistic here. Women used to come to me in therapy when I had 8 hours a day listening to women. And after a few sessions, they're so happy in their life, but they would come in and say, why is it that you listen so well to me and my husband doesn't? He's my husband. I said, you have to understand 3 things. One is when you talk to me, you're here once a week for 50 minutes. I don't hear it after that. 2, you're not upset with me. If you were upset with me, I'd say, find another therapist, period. I'm not going to work it out with you. And 3, you pay me. What payment does your husband get? The payment, when a man does things for his wife, we want payment. And the payment is that you acknowledge that we're a good husband and you're happy with us. That's what you come to a relationship to feel better, to go to a higher level of love. And it's through mutual affection and appreciation and understanding. You go there to be filled up. You make your love there. And then you go give it to the world and you come back and you make more love with your partner. This is the possibility, but we have to have this emotional intelligence. So here I am, I remember walking out of the door realizing, Barbara and I are going to split up because she wanted to be with this other guy. And I said, okay, let's take a week and just see where we stand with it. And I walked out the door and I went, I don't know where I'm going to go. I was just like so heartbroken. This is going to end. What am I going to do? I have no source of income now. And I this woman loves another man more than me. So I was like so insecure about this. And I was devastated. And so I just called my mom. I was 31 years old and called my mom and I said, Mom, I'm separating from my wife. I need you. And she said, oh, okay. I'm on my way to the airport to visit one of my other children. I'll change my ticket at the airport and come visit you. And I said, that'd be great, Mom. So then I'm waiting at the airport for her, and now I'm writing out my feelings. I'm angry at my ex-wife, my ex Barbara. I'm angry at her. I'm so sad. I'm so disappointed. I'm so afraid. I'm so insecure. I'm so sorry. It's not working out. Oh, I'm so emotional. I mean, it's just so emotional. And one of the things you do when the present time world triggers all of these strong emotions, these emotions as part of the primitive limbic system of the brain, that a child, it's not logical, it's not rational, it doesn't have the prefrontal cortex associated with it. So you want to use your prefrontal cortex, but you want to, by identifying these emotions and seeking to understand them and empathize with yourself the way a parent would. So now I'm writing out my feelings from, what I'm writing out my feelings, all the stuff, kind of like being very dramatic about it, and then getting back to, I want to love you. I wish you were here, and all this stuff. And then what you do is you imagine that person writing a letter to you, asking for forgiveness. And then you write about how you forgive them. It's a process. It's all my books laid out. But here I am at the airport. I hadn't figured that part out yet. I was just writing the feeling letter, getting my feelings out and crying. People are seeing me just thinking, this poor man. And then finally I get to the place where I'm writing along, and then I remember when I felt abandoned as a child. The memories were not in my mind at all. They were gone. They were repressed. It turns out that I was 6 years old or 7 years old around that time. My family took a trip from Texas to California, and we had a beach house for a month. And we got there, and my mother said, who wants to go to Aunt Inie's house? And that's my mother's sister, lives in California. And my brothers whispered in my ear, Aunt Inie lives across the street from Disneyland. We're all going to go. So I'm like excited. I want to go. I want to go. The whole point of the trip is to go to Disneyland for a little kid. And so I want to go. And suddenly I found myself in this car with these children I'd never met, going to Aunt Inie's house, and none of my family was there. And I spent 7 days there, thinking I would never see my family again. Complete feelings of abandonment, left out, feeling insecure. And I remember on the 7th day, I just said, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to leave these terrible people. And I walked down the street to return. And it is seemed like a really long street. I've been there since. It's just a normal block. But I walked down the street. I'm determined to return to my family and leave these evil people. I was not happy there at all. And I got to the end of the road, and the road went to the right and to the left and then up a hill. And I realized I can't find my way home. And that was the trauma. I can't find my way home. And I felt it. And I remember as a little boy, I can't do it. And that's when the feeling of inadequacy froze inside of me. I just put my head down. Maybe I'll go back, and if I'm a good boy, they might return me to my family. And so I came home. I walked back to their house, and my aunt saw me, and she said to me, you need your mother. And having an adult say that to me, I then burst into hysterics. She said to this day, she's never seen a child more hysterical than what came out of me, but it was all bundled up inside. I didn't know it was there. You see, as children, we don't know what's going on inside of us until somebody says that's going on inside of you. She just said, you need your mother. And she got in a car and brought me back to my mother. And all I remembered from that trip later in life was walking on the beach with my mother that day, because my mother spent the whole day sort of trying to give me back what I lost. And I could always remember being this little boy holding my mother's hand, and the world seems so big. Because see, children at 6 years old, up to about 7 years old, their brain is primarily producing theta frequencies. Theta frequencies is the same as dream state. And in dream state, you have no logic. See, it's all just dreams. And it's the same state as when you're in hypnosis. So you're being reconditioned. So all those first 7 years is this very, very deep conditioning. And in that moment, the trauma for me that it created anxiety the rest of my life in certain situations was, I'm not good enough. I can't get home. I can't find my way home. And maybe if I'm a good boy, I'll get back. So that's the trauma. There I'm writing my feelings. I remember that experience. It comes up, the hysteria that I felt. So now I'm writing a feeling letter to my mother. and my brothers, and I'm writing what I'm angry about, what I'm sad about, what I'm afraid of. I'll never get home. I'm scared. I feel not good enough. I'm sorry. I went in the car. All these regrets and so forth. And what I want is I need you. I love you. This childlike person just came out of me that I didn't even know existed. It was gone. See, this is our childlike feeling part. It's got so much love and so much good stuff from heaven in there. And so I was writing that out, and I just had all this catharsis where now I was feeling great. I was just feeling wonderful. I got all that out. Actually, I brought my awareness into it and loving myself. I took a good breath. I mean, this went on for 9 months basically, but it comes in waves. And so that I did the process, and right then my mother's plane arrived. She got off the plane and I gave her a big hug. I said, Mom, I'm so happy you're here. And she said, well, I'm happy to be here. And I'm glad you asked me to come. And then I said, but I don't know where we're going to go. And she says, oh, well, let's go to Aunt Inie's. And then I said, how much time do you have? She says, I think I could be away a week. We could do 7 days. So I spent 7 days with my mother at Aunt Inie's, and I went to Disneyland with them 2 or 3 times. I held her hand. I couldn't sleep at all. I mean, I was devastated, and she would see that I couldn't sleep at times, and she'd sit by the piano and teach me piano and, do mothery kind of things for me and cook for me and listen to my feelings. She was just like an angel there, not trying to fix me, but just believing that I would get through this process. And after the 7 days was pretty much up, again, I was devastated. My knees would shake. I was anxious. I couldn't sleep. I had hot sweats and everything. What am I going to do? Where would I live? What would I do to make money? Was I good enough to be in a relationship? Just knocked down to insecurity. But you see, it was coming up. This is from a trauma from childhood. So from that, everything that upsets us, and particularly a loss of starting over, when you have a love relationship, it's going to trigger those deep feelings of abandonment, feelings of inadequacy, feelings of unworthiness, feelings that gave rise to all stress in our lives at a later date. And you have a chance to access it. And it doesn't always have to be 6 years old. It could just be 10 years ago. It could be 15 years ago. It could be 25 years ago. But it has to be something in your past is the way you can really heal things. Why? Because when you experience emotions about what just happened, all emotions are programmed into us. They're monkey reactions to intimidate and change others. Anger is always seeking. I mean, why did monkeys have anger? They're not getting what they want, and they want to intimidate you and scare you. So that it's there to change other people. Why do they cry? They cry to elicit sympathy, so people will give them more and help them more. Why do we experience fear? Is so that we get other people to do things for us and we don't have to do it ourselves. Why do we experience guilt and shame and regret? Is because if we feel that, then people feel like we're learning our lesson, and they feel sorry for us, and they feel that now we've learned our lesson, they can trust us more. So there's always behind emotions. You don't know why you have them. They're just there, but they come up when you're not getting what you want because they're seeking to manipulate a situation to get what you want. But they're primitive. If you use negative emotions to get what you want, you will always have more negative emotions. How many times have you used complaining to get what you want? That will mean your brain is wired up to complain more to get what you want more, as opposed to using your emotions not to change others, but to heal and change yourself. And that's a lifetime journey to where then you just have mainly positive emotions to things. Because people who my age at 70 years old, I often see they don't get erections. They don't have passion in sex. You'll see women are overwhelmed and stressed. They kind of look like men, that they don't have the juice. They don't have the radiance they had when they're younger, because that's when they had all the hormones being produced. You see, this is passion, and passion comes from emotion, but it comes from loving emotion which puts you in balance. So anyway, here I am going through this process, and at the end of the 7 days, I remember it so clearly. There were a few Hollywood celebrities that were my clients at that time. I was in Hollywood, and one had cancer. He was a Saturday Night Live comedian, and he was dying of cancer. He had a goodbye party for his friends, and they were all celebrities and famous people. And normally I would feel very little. I would feel like that little 6-year-old. I didn't realize that, but I would just feel very little. And so I was getting in touch with that 6-year-old. And now I'm this other person who's an adult, 30 years old, 31 years old, maybe. And I'm at the party. I wasn't intimidated by anybody. I was just standing there, and it was actually very flattering because he said, "This is my therapist, John Gray." And I'm standing next to my mother. And for the first time in my adult life, I looked over at my mom and I realized she's shorter than me. See, a part of me froze in that place and never really got to fully integrate with my adult self. And we all have these parts of us that are frozen from our childhood where we didn't get what we needed. And it's a breakup. It's a heartbreak. It's a bad thing happens in your life. Usually that's the only way you'll ever access those places. It's too bad, but that's the way life is. It's a stairway of you get to a point of growth. And now to take the next step, you have to get in touch with what's keeping you from that next step. That's a block. And so if you don't have a coach helping you look at that block and processing it and then asking, what's this related to? What will happen is when you hit a block and you don't process what's behind it, a block in this case is self-pity, poor me. It could be blame. It could be depression. It could be anxiety, whatever the blocks are. You'll just feel the block. You'll stay blocked. And when you stay stuck in a block, the world reflects whatever it will take to force you to feel the emotion that might help you to let go of that block. So always the world, and this is sort of metaphysical, but look at your life, victims just keep having bad things happen to them. And, if you let go of that, good things happen to you. And then you get to a point and there's some challenge that happens. And then you overcome that challenge. And that's what life is. It's we're here to learn. Now, some of us are on vacation. So I don't judge people who don't want to grow. And they're happy in their little life and they're very contented. And that's okay. They don't come to me for help. I'm a person who says, you can have passion. You can keep a relationship going. You can make a commitment. You can fall in love. You can keep that love going. And people that want that, there has to be a seed inside of them. And then we give them that information. But I'm not attached to thinking everybody should do that. We're souls. We come from heaven. We all have a journey. And many people, unfortunately, don't fulfill that journey. They get another chance around, the way I look at it. So I don't feel sorry for them. As a matter of fact, I don't feel sorry for anybody. See, self-pity is a block. And if I feel sorry for you, your block is just being reinforced. So there's a big difference between sympathy and compassion. Both are forms of empathy. I try to put myself in your situation and feel what you're feeling. That's empathy. And do I put myself in your feelings saying, oh, poor you, poor you? That's just pushing them down, reinforcing their block, instead of compassion, which is a context that says, and now you have the opportunity to grow. And yet it doesn't invalidate the pain at all. Because I remember having processed, this whole divorce thing with my first wife, just devastated. But then having this experience where I was healing myself, and every day I felt more and more alive and better. And then I started counseling couples who were going through divorces. I had so much empathy. I couldn't even believe how much empathy I had, which is why I started out today. If you're a coach, you can really only heal to the extent that you've healed it within yourself. But at the same time, you can still guide people and give them instruction if you haven't gone through it yourself. There's that place. But to be an actual healer, you suck it out of people. You just take away their pain, because pain is healed when one way pain is healed is when you actually bring the wound out and somebody connects with you, somebody relates to you in some way, it just disappears. Because ultimately all pain is separating from the truth, is separation. And that's why, healing a divorce, a loss of a loved one, a loss of a business, these big losses actually can be the greatest healing opportunities if we can share that with somebody that can relate to it, or at least if we have a personal growth technique, which is what we've been referring to. The feeling letter technique is simply looking at what's bothering you in a discipline, saying, I'm going to write for 3 or 4 minutes about what makes me angry about this situation. And then what do I really want? You go from anger to what I want. And then you go from sadness, what I'm disappointed about sometimes, or sadness. And then you go, what I wish, what I want, or what I wanted. You always keep coming back to every negative emotion is you didn't get what you wanted. And then fear is what I don't want to happen, what I don't want. And then regret is, what I didn't want. I didn't want this to happen. Wish it didn't happen. So you've got these, we have the feeling letter format. You write out your emotions. You get back in touch with what you want and what you wish. Because see, that's who you are. who you are is this being that wants to help the world, that wants to love and wants to be loved. Okay, that's what we are. So you always keep coming back to what you're wanting, what you're wishing. And that's why if you divorce somebody and you're mad at them, you're sort of stuck in this place of, because of you, I can't be me. It's like Oprah once said, she said, you give someone free space in your brain to torment you. You know, this is why we need forgiveness, not for the other person, but for yourself. But there's something called the forgiveness response. And many people can't activate it. Part of what meditation, they often said there's the relaxation response. If you learn meditation, just repeat a harmonious sound over and over and over and over and over and over, and your mind wanders and you come back and repeat the sound over and over and over again. What happens, it elicits a reaction inside to relax, and your mind begins to expand and open up. Well, there's a forgiveness response. It's a button that gets pushed. And the way you develop the forgiveness response is you access the part of you that's childlike, because it's the childlike part of you. It's not the adult part of you. It's the childlike part of you is where that button is. So you experience some pain from your past, you write out these feelings, and then you imagine a parent saying to you, I understand why you're angry. I understand why you're sad. You're disappointed. I understand what you're afraid of. I understand you feel bad. It's not your fault. It's my fault. I'm the parent. You're the child. You're innocent. I love you. I care about you. And I know you're upset because I didn't do this and this. And I promise you, I will do that in the future. And I know you wanted this and this. And I'll promise you that I will do this. I love you just the way you are. And you say loving things, you compliment this parent, you imagine this parent giving you everything you needed. You didn't even know you needed it then, and making promises to you and apologizing and saying, I love you, please forgive me. I love you, please forgive me. I love you. It's my fault, not yours. You're innocent. Please forgive me. It will elicit a response. It's there. It's not there as an adult. It's there as a child. So you have to go back to the limbic system, this child programming place, listen to what that child says, then give that child what it needs. And you see, and some people say, oh, you're just imagining that. Of course we're imagining it. Do you realize that whenever you think you're not good enough, you're imagining that? When you think you're unworthy, you're imagining that. When you think that you're not lovable, you're imagining that. When you think you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're imagining that. This is an amazing world. And you imagine focusing on what's not working rather than what is there and what is working. So it's all imagination, and it all got programmed in as children. So you go back to where the programming, where you were like a clay that could be molded one way or the other. And then as you get older, it gets hardened. So you come out as gold, but you get thrown into some weird shape, as opposed to softening it again back to these childlike emotions. That's where you can change your programming, is when you get in touch with the emotions. And that's why loss, there's nothing more powerful than loss to get you in touch with your emotions. And beyond that emotion is appreciation. Oh my gosh. I love my wife, my dear Bonnie of 34 years, more than I did when she was alive. I mean, and you know, I was embarrassed to say that before, but now I'm proud to say it, because that's the way the world works. You know, back when I was writing on those early little computers, they would crash all the time, right? And I'm a writer. So, you know, as a writer, you have to critique your work, and you're constantly rewriting it. And occasionally you're writing something and it's not so great. And you're thinking, I don't keep trying to make it better and it's not good enough. And then you lose it. The computer crashes. Oh no, that's the best. I can't recapture that. That's the best thing I ever wrote. It's like when you lose something, you miss it. That's also why we all get so attached and so cluttered in our lives. We don't want to let go of things, because when you let go, suddenly you think, oh, that's so valuable. I don't want to get rid of that. I might need that someday. So you have more appreciation of it as soon as you start to let it go. But in letting go, when you can't let go, when your life can't flow, things will just be taken from you. And it's not like you created it. You didn't create it. It's just that the way the world works in a harmonious way is what you're attached to disappears. And at the time for them, it's the right time for them. It's the right time for you. You know, when you do what's called self-reflection, self-analysis, analyze your life, particularly you're in your 40s or whatever, 50s, 60s, 70s, you look back and you realize you couldn't be the person you are today had not that happened. Oh my gosh, yes. I would have never gotten Bonnie to marry me had not Barbara fallen in love with another man.
Yes.
I'm just so grateful for that. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. And yet it was at that time, the worst thing that ever happened to me. So, and life is.
Thank you sharing your stories. It's so empowering. Well, almost, I mean, I allocated and requested 90 minutes with you, and we are 20 past 12 New Zealand time, so 10 more minutes. Before we open for a Q&A, I would like to ask you one more, some sort of coming from the part of, the pain and the healing the heart, to the next level where we open up again to new love and to new opportunities. And I mean, there's a whole new world of online dating and, all these ways of relating we are facing nowadays in comparison to what it was when you wrote this book initially. 3-party relationships, this and that and that. I mean, there's so many more concepts that are so different. What would you say, let's make it really short and sweet, what would you say, what is carrying us into new opportunities with more grace, with more wisdom, with more skill set?
Okay, so one of the themes of the book, Mars and Venus Starting Over, is very powerful processing techniques.
Yes.
And I mean, there's a lot in that book. I mean, there's this, and it's what carried me through to being the person I am today. Without a doubt, those are all very easy to apply, powerful tools, and I've mentioned some of them today. But also what's in that book is the many reasons we give ourselves to avoid starting a new relationship. So, I think it's 23 reasons women have, 23 reasons men. It's some big number like that, where I looked at all the excuses people give, rationalizations, justifications to say, I don't need a relationship, or I need to wait to have a relationship, or I'm going to have this kind of relationship. So like an example, let's say you're a mother and you've got a child and you think, well, now there's no father around. I need to give extra attention to my child, so I'm not going to date. Wrong. You're wounding your child that way. It's hard to say wounding, but you're not giving your child what they need. What they need is a happy mother who loves men. Okay. A little girl needs to feel that you can trust men. A little boy needs to feel you can trust me. And you do that when mom looks at a man and says, I'm getting my adult needs fulfilled. A mother should never look for her love needs just from her children. She needs to look for it from an adult. There's something called adult love and then mother to child love. It's different. So you give your children a gift by taking time for yourself to start dating again. So that's like one example. So many different examples of how we fool ourselves we don't want to feel the pain of being rejected again. That's what it is. We want to protect ourselves. And to the extent you protect yourself, you only cause the wound to become greater. Anything you avoid, you're actually growing, the fear increases more and more and more, even if you're not feeling the fear. It's just something, no, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. So you need to start. That's the most important thing, is get back on the horse, but do it in a different way. For a woman, you would not be thinking, I'm going to have sex with somebody. That would be way too vulnerable, bring up way too many feelings. But I'm going to create a series of positive dating experiences with very low expectations. The only expectation I have is to once again experience as a woman. I think mostly women are listening. I may be wrong. But as a woman,
we have probably more men actually.
Oh,
so I can see, maybe half, yeah.
Well, men generally don't have the problem of, statistically for men, within 3 years, they're married again. That's a statistic. And for women, it's 9 years if they get married, and quite often they don't. They just figure, I don't need a relationship. Because the ultimate thing for women and men are different. Women don't need men to feel love. Men primarily need women to feel love, and we feel love only because we have this stronger sex drive than women. The part of the brain that regulates sex is much bigger in a man than a woman, and it also has less requirements, and it also is more necessary because feeling the pleasure that sex provides helps a man to feel, and when he can feel, then his estrogen goes up and he can feel love. Women have many things that can increase their estrogen. They're not so dependent on sex. It's just that sex is dessert. But for men, it's the main meal. Sex is so important for men. And so that will drive men into taking risks and whatever to get in another relationship, because the sex drive is his way to find love. Whereas for women, they get lost because they think I don't need that to find love. But actually, there's a part of love which you're missing out on that is really good for your health and vitality and so forth, which is heterosexual love, loving a man. This is really, really a powerful, powerful gift to your children as well as to yourself. Okay, so practical. How do you date when you're not ready to date? You lower your expectations. For example, as a woman, you don't expect to be turned on to a man at all. You're finding a man who's more interested in you than you're interested in him. And he seems interesting. That's all. Curious, a nice man. And he wants to do things for you. You're not obligated to do anything for him. You're not obligated to have sex with him. That's way down the line, generally for a woman, because what will come up, just the thought of sex is going to bring up more pain that you're feeling from losing this attachment. Okay, this marriage ended. Now I don't want to get hurt again. Boom, it's going to hit that childhood stuff. So you have to go on the date to then experience your resistance to going on a date. That will bring up those feelings and you can process them. And so you plan a date, you go on a date, you see how you feel about it. When butterflies, I'm uncomfortable, I don't want to do it, I've changed my mind. Process the emotions that you're going through. They're all irrational. You see, all unhappiness is irrational. And if you're a child, it perfectly makes sense. I don't go around saying to my clients, you're being irrational, because that would hurt their feelings, but they are. I look at everything negative in my mind and say, it's false evidence appearing real. It's based on fear. FEAR, false evidence appearing real. And what is the evidence? These negative beliefs I have that are outdated. They belong to a child who doesn't yet have a higher self or a higher sense of wisdom, a lifetime of experience to make sense of things. And people do need the gender intelligence as well to be more rational in relationships, because we have so many unrealistic demands of the opposite sex, that they behave like us, they think like us, that they give us everything we want. That's all just nonsense. That your partner is dessert. And when you go on these dates, for a woman, it's about getting to experience having someone do things for you again. So your mind can start to open up to, oh, I'm not fully dependent on the person I lost to get what I need, but I'm getting a little bit and a little bit. It's kind of like house shopping. And if you were to shop and you're going house shopping, if you find a house that if you're looking for just the right house, like for example, you could come to my house and see my house. It's a beautiful home. But if you wanted to buy my home thinking that, okay, you're going to have sex with this home, or you're going to buy this home, you're going to give yourself to this home. What do you do when you buy a house now in America? I found this out with my daughter's home when she bought her house. You actually hire someone. You hire someone to come and find everything that's wrong with the house and negotiate. You don't want to put yourself into that situation where you're having to hire someone to look at what's wrong. That's your brain going into override, going into, oh, but look at this and look at this and look at this. It's just simply you're going to create a series of positive dating experiences to get a little bit more of what you like and to enjoy being in the presence of someone. And for a man, he needs to just enjoy doing something for a woman and getting a smile. He doesn't have to go for the whole sex thing, whatever. Some men don't feel the need for sex. I did. I just have being married to Bonnie, having such a great sex life, to lose that was just like unbelievable. But this is a sweet thing, but you have to do it at the right time. For the first year, for me, grieving the loss of my lifetime partner, that's different from a divorce, but you have an amazing relationship, of soulmate relationship, and then have your partner die and watching it happen. That's just another trauma, powerlessness and helplessness. And just simply see her body go from vibrant sex partner, love partner, parent, grandparent, and deeply in love with her. And she turned into a skeleton. The night before she died, I remember I was massaging her, and it was so silly in my mind. I said, honey, did you know you have scoliosis? Scoliosis is when your spine is bent. But what had happened is her whole spine had broken off and was just, it was off to the side. I realized later, oh God, she didn't have scoliosis. Her body was literally falling apart. It was just so sad, so sad. And it took me, at least 6 months of just wailing. It had hit such a primitive level. It wasn't childhood stuff in here. We're talking about some kind of animal inside of me, very deep into the primitive parts of my brain, couldn't find words, could just wail. and wail and wail. And I will write a book on grieving the loss of a life partner. That's a big thing, because it's different from just a relationship that wasn't working, worked and didn't work, tried to make it work, something that is you rely on totally, and then it's gone. That was you want to die.
Yeah.
I want to just die with her, you know.
Oh,
And
yes.
if a husband died, a woman would throw herself onto the fire and die, you know, give up her life, just because that need integrate. If I can't have your love, then I can't ever have love again. And so expressing emotion in the context, this is important, of knowing you're going to eventually feel better, knowing that you're eventually going to be even more fulfilled. And that's what my whole life warmed me up to be able to go through that very, very deep grieving process. Because my feelings were, I want to die. I don't want to see anybody. Again, it was a male process of not wanting to be with people. For women, the need to share with others is greater. But I needed to just, no one came to my house for 6 months, and I just wailed and didn't eat and just couldn't sleep. But I did talk to people online, and something very nice, which I'll put in my book. And so many people, when they experience a death, and so many people have died in the last year, one of the things to say to people, because people don't know what to say, you know, they want to say something to cheer you up. You don't need someone to cheer you up. You don't need someone to say, well, you know, your partner's in heaven smiling on you and they want you to be happy. You shouldn't cry. It's like, I would just go, yeah, that's true. I would never make somebody wrong for it. How dare you say that to me? But what really works, and this is why funerals, when I often do this at funerals, is people stand up and share stories about the person that died. Because every time I would ask people, I say, well, tell me what an experience you had with Bonnie. And then it was literally like for a moment, she was there again, because to that person, that she's still there with them. And so I'm getting to see Bonnie again through their eyes, and through their love of her and their appreciation of her and something good about her. And so I'm able to see her again and see her again and see her again. And so I collected all of these emails where I asked people, just I'm not saying anybody, but tell me what you like about Bonnie, share an experience. And that's what I'd love to hear. And it just touched my heart each time, which then brought up more feeling. And then I could eventually start seeing how this was all about my childhood, and I could process some childhood things. But mainly for me at this stage of my life, it was more about going back and remembering every time, particularly the first 15 years of our marriage. I think we had a lot of little big challenges that we went through as I was developing these ideas of how to resolve conflict, how to handle differences, and so forth. And from this place, I could look back and see how I could have done that better, If only I'd done this, if only I'd done that. Because when you're grieving, your heart is so open, and inside of an open heart is so much wisdom. And then with that wisdom, then starting a relationship and committing to be that person you wanted to be with her even better. And I'm not doing this from this point of perspective. I feel really guilty. I was a great husband. She said I was magnificent, but still can be better. And to be able to go back and feel, oh, if I only done that, I could have made her life easier in that way. Feeling the regret and then letting it go with an understanding of wisdom, how I could have done it better, and then committing to do it and then doing it. So it's the doing it. It's that really brings the fulfillment and heals everything inside. So, and still, you know, I've got all her pictures everywhere, and I want to see her. I will tear up from time to time, feeling grateful, feeling so lucky, feeling sweetness. It's kind of a melancholy sweetness, no longer pain. And that's what people have to know. There's an end to the pain once you process it. And there's so many different ways to process it.
Wonderful. Oh, I so appreciate all your wisdom. I just want to invite you talking for just a minute about your website and your insider program, because the gift link we have in here leads to a kind of little process you offer, and then people have the opportunity to learn more about your work. Just how can people work with you at this stage? Just share a little bit with us.
Well, we have this free course, which is the gift, which is right on the front page. You have the link to it, and it's how to get everything you want in relationship. That's a beginning. Another is our best course that we get rave reviews on is I edited it, but my daughter, Lauren, did the whole thing, and it's for women only. It's called How to Get Your Me Time. And another way of looking at it is how to be happy without depending on your partner, so your partner can make you happier. How to get your partner, how to train your partner. You know, she just trains women how to train men. So so that course is available. And I used to have it. You mentioned the Insider program. I discontinued the Insider program. It's a 1-year programmer. So those who are in it, they're in it. They'll be on it for next year, and that's it. What I'm doing now is, I do 3 to 4 hours every Thursday on YouTube and Facebook. So I'm just making myself fully available to do that for anybody, so they don't have to pay anything for it. So, I don't really need the money. So I just figure I'll do that and let people get what they can from me. And what, I usually do a couple hours, and then I take people's question and answers on Facebook. YouTube, I can't get their questions, but I get it on the Facebook. It's simultaneous. So if people want to see more of me, you can go to YouTube, become one of my, what do they call it when you're
subscriber? Yeah, subscriber.
Subscribe and share, please share.
Yeah.
You subscribe, and you can see already there's, I think maybe 100 of these long talks I've given. A lot of people just put it on when they're doing the dishes, or put it on when they're making dinner, and they put there's such, everyone is a different topic. What I did in the last, I'm still in the series of going through all those 12 blocks. Next week it will be, we'll be on, we just did perfectionism, and then it'll be resentment next time. And then the week after that will be self-pity, which is a little bit what we talked about today.
Awesome. It's unfortunately Australia time 3 a.m. at this point, and New Zealand time 5 a.m. But we have someone here from Germany that would be their daytime.
They can always send their questions in to that site, and they can also hear it at another time. They're all recorded. They're all there, so people can get that. There's just so much information. What I think what you said is that other people have told me, whichever one they come in, they hear something, it's just what they need to hear at that moment.
Absolutely. No, totally. What I want to also enforce is, of course, us coaches, in order to be Mars Venus coached, we coaches are here. So we coaches offer half an hour for free as a gift. So that's what John is proposing and communicating as well. So Gilan, maybe you put the link to my calendar. So if people do feel that they want to have time with me to learn about Mars Venus and share about their life situation and see whether this type of coaching is a fit or a match, then I'm very happy to meet anybody. So
particularly if somebody's never done coaching before, I invite you to do it, because you don't know what you're missing until you get it. And it's such an amazing experience to have somebody who knows how to ask questions that you answer to somebody you don't even know. And ironically, when somebody you don't know knows you in a way that most people don't, because you don't always share the answers to the questions they ask you, you learn yourself more. You learn about yourself more through that process, more so than if it was somebody that knew you. Because, we all have a way of talking to the people that we know, but when it's somebody you don't know, it's a fresh experience of a part of you, because you're in a relationship with someone you don't know. You will always learn another part of you that you didn't know. It's an amazing experience.
Yeah, wonderful. No, thank you for enforcing this. So we are a little bit over time, but there might be questions from anybody being live still with us. So we're 10 people here right now. If anyone wants to either unmute and ask John personally a question, that's your opportunity. Otherwise, we have the chat box. And is there anybody who would like to request to be unmuted? I just see whether I see hands up or anything. No, it seems very quiet, everybody. Yeah, thank you so much, John. Is there anything else? I had one more last thing. I'm mother of 3 millennials between 20 and 25. My 25-year-old daughter had a bit of a heartbreak moment yesterday, and just really looking into the future. What do you envisage for the next generation of good, committed couples? What in all this complexity, what would be your one big message to the younger generation?
Well, understanding that they all are confused about their gender, and to recognize that they have both a male female side, and that when they're stressed, if it's a woman, this is a time to find, particularly in your 20s, is to find your ability to be happy without depending on a man. It's a very, very important time. The more mature a species is, the more evolved a species is, the longer it takes them to find maturity. And we're actually seeing that in the biology. We didn't do the biology in 30 years ago, 40 years ago, but in a sense, when I was growing up, there was this sense that you're ready to go out on your own when you're 21. And now it's more like 28, 27, yes. 28. That's when they now know the prefrontal cortex of the brain develops.
Even so, there's so much more knowledge shared and communicated. It is that it's almost older age now, or, you know, kind of end.
We are a more evolved species. There's no question about it. And it takes longer to mature. So we can be very critical or judgmental of what they're going through, but actually it's a longer process, and they shouldn't expect and even encouraged, in my perspective. I wouldn't discourage it strongly, but I wouldn't encourage someone to get married until they're 27 or 28, just because their brain hasn't fully developed in terms of a sense of what can make me happy. So let's take an example of a 21-year-old woman who has a baby. Her happiness is coming from raising a child rather than taking care of herself. Or she gets married to some guy and they have this big romantic relationship, and she commits herself to him and he commits himself to her. What happens before they have a sense of who they are and what makes them happy from inside, they're going to be dependent on their partner too much for their happiness. See, it's part of the secret of why I could write all my books as well, is that I was 32 years old before I got married. And so I've been a monk for 9 years. I'm a happy guy. You know, I know how to do the whole thing. And not that I don't have challenges and problems, but I can always come back to my happiness without anybody changing. To a certain extent, that's called not taking life so personally, which is, if you're upset with me, it's not about me, it's more about you. You know, some people rip me off or whatever. Well, look, I know I'm good within myself. I don't depend on you to treat me a certain way. I'm not so offended by things. I'm not so annoyed by things. You need that space to have a relationship work. And many people never took their 20s in order to develop self-esteem. So self-esteem is not taking things so personally. And you know, it's like, that's your issue. Let me try to help you with it, rather than how dare you do that to me? And I can't believe this, or I'm going to. So the 20s is a time for self-development, not that the rest of our life isn't, but intimacy really can grow in a healthy way, I think, after 28. 27 is a good time to be getting married if you've somewhat grown. Some people are still too immature to get married, and so they'll have a few divorces before they wake up and realize they're the problem in their life.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Very, very last question. You have this beautiful statue behind you. Every time I see you online, I wonder, what is this amazing being? Is it an angel? Is it a Magdalena?
That comes from the Vatican.
Oh my God.
That's an actual beautiful story there. I believe my whole office is filled with power objects. Beautiful. Behind that is a big, gigantic crystal ball.
Yeah, I see that now.
I got statues all around. I got football helmets of famous football players, and I got Egyptian statues, all authentic stuff. You see, when people, that statue, I'll just tell the story of that statue. Back in the day when people had little cameras, you know, you'd have to go to the camera store in order to get your film. So the Vatican, across the street from the Vatican, was the camera store. And literally there were thousands of people in line to get their cameras going through this little Vatican store. And they also would go by Mother Mary and offer things to her. So basically it was a holy relic, people praying to her through her. So a lot of energy came through to that. And so I said, I'd like to buy that. And they said, oh, that's priceless. You can't buy that. Till I offered them a price they couldn't resist.
Thank you. That's a very, very cool story. Thank you so much. Thank you, John, for your generosity, your honesty, your transparency, your humor, your heart-centeredness. I don't know. Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you. And I feel
I so much appreciate your commitment to bringing the Mars Venus
thank
idea,
you.
emotional intelligence. We really need it in this
Gender
world.
intelligence. I just recorded a little piece about gender intelligence actually 2 weeks ago. So I will speak more about that. And, you know, I have done a couple of webinars about starting over. And I think taking from this conversation new material into new webinars will be very, very valuable and helpful for many, many people around the globe as we share. Thank you for your time and a wonderful afternoon and evening in the US. And I hope we see you again, very soon. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you. Yes, thank you, John. And goodbye to everybody. Thank you so much for coming online. And for those who see on replay, we have in the subscription box below all the links we have mentioned during the conversations. All right, thank you so much. Good night, good morning. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.